Many of our students struggle with initiating language and conversation, and this is why there is usually a strong emphasis on requesting, or we say manding, in an ABA program. So how can we teach more advanced manding using things like WH questions, who is it, or where is it, and so on? Hi, I'm Shira.
And I'm Shayna. We're behavior analysts who create weekly content about how to teach children with autism so that they make real progress. And we create shareable resources to make your job just a little easier. Today's topic is all about manding with WH questions. And if you want more videos like this, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated on new video releases.
So it makes sense that we start with manding with, one word, because if you look at how children learn language, very often at, about 12 to 15 months, they're saying that one word. And then if any of you have had your own kids and you know that that toddler phase is all about WH questions, the kids will be constantly asking, what is it? Who is it? Why? Why? To every single thing that comes up. They're very inquisitive, and that's kind of a natural progression of needing information. And it's similar with our students.
So we often refer to manding. We talk freely, manding, but to non-ABA professionals, manding means requesting. And I think we need to be really cognizant of that when we're talking to parents and really talking about it as it's requesting for WH. We can talk about manding later, but we just really need to talk to parents. It's manding equals requesting. So we're going to switch back and forth between the two for this podcast. But when you're talking to people who aren't in the ABA field or in particular parents, please say requesting. It's kind of one of my biggest pet peeves. Anyways, requesting, manding is usually the cornerstone of many ABA programs. It should be the cornerstone of all ABA programs, right? If a learner can mand or request for their wants and needs, it can help reduce challenging behavior. It gives them language. They're motivated to talk because they're getting something that they want when they're using their words.
We have a whole podcast episode on teaching manding and ABA. I say manding because that's in the title of the episode, but it is requesting, because that basic relationship starts so early when a child can learn that they can use their words, they can get what they want, and maybe somebody even gives them what they want, and it builds that basic relationship. And so now we're looking at how can we continue to build on that relationship of I ask for an item, I get an item, into kind of more complex conversation, comprehension, and all of those skills that go beyond like the basic nouns.
So when we're talking about requesting with WH questions, we need to look at some prerequisite skills. And, one of those prerequisites is that students can request for their basic wants and needs, right? They're able to say, banana, meaning I want banana, or in a phrase, I want banana, can I have this, that type of thing. So that they can request for their basic needs, basic wants, items, actions, that type of thing. Requesting for more complex requests, like requesting for attention, requesting for help, requesting, for appropriate protesting. Those are all lumped in there. And if you look at the F section in the ABLES, it gives a nice progression of what students learn when. So making sure that, when you are teaching those WH mans, that you are looking and saying, okay, yes, my kiddo has these other mans first, and they're able to request for what they want and get their needs met that way.
And sometimes we make the mistake of like mastering manding. Like they've basically done a manding program, we master it, and we move right into like tacting and interverbals. And we talk a lot about how to teach tacting and interverbals across operants. And I think this is kind of the same thing, where we have to remember that so many foundational skills are taught through manding. They really identify verbs, in a picture receptively and expressively, if they don't know what it means to like swing faster on the swing, or they can't tell you go faster, or they can't tell you that they want to play. Can they really identify play? So it's so important to start building all of these skills with manding. The research does tell us that manding leads to tacting, but tacting doesn't necessarily lead to manding. So this is why it's so important to teach manding first. And so often we know that kids get into that WH questions area of programming, and we find that their comprehension is just really not there. And unfortunately, it could lead to some memorization or to some rote responding. And I think we have to think about how we're continuing to teach these skills through Manding, because obviously that's, intrinsically motivating. If they can ask for something and they can get it, they're going to want to know what that word is, because it's resulted in something automatically that they want, right? So either they want the answer to the question, or they want to find the thing that's missing, or they want you to push them faster on the swing. And it's so naturally motivating that that's such a good way to build that language and vocabulary.
Sure, you had a couple good nuggets in there, and I want to go back and really reiterate a few things and really put some emphasis on a few things that you said. Number one, you said, Manding should be something that's kept in the program all the time. Completely agree. I have a program checkoff list that we typically do throughout session, and it's just got all the programs on there, making sure that therapists hit all those targets. And one of those things that I've always got on, and it's just, even if, Manding is quote unquote mastered, it's just all session long requesting. Did you get to requesting? Did you contrive some situations? It's on there. So making sure that your ABA program, even if kids can ask for things, really making sure that requesting always stays top of mind for therapists, because that's how kids get their needs met. And that's also what helps keep problem behavior at a low, because people are empowered and they can ask for what they want. I have some kids who are very, very highly verbal, but when they get stressed or anxious, it's like they lose their words and they just can't request for things anymore. So making sure that we can always keep that up and keep practicing that in a lot of different situations. The other thing that you mentioned was that the research says that Manding leads to tacting. So requesting can lead to labeling. And I think this needs to be slowed down a little bit, because it basically says that if you teach kids to request for an item, so you teach them to request for banana. I don't know why I'm using the word banana, but let's keep going with that here. You're teaching a kid to request for banana because they're motivated for that banana. They're going to learn that very quickly. But then, because they're requesting for banana, you can test them, and they quote unquote have the label for banana. So they've learned that label. So if you hold it up and say, "What is it?" they're going to say banana. But interestingly enough, if you teach tacting, so you teach, "What is it? Banana," and they don't have the request for banana, it doesn't automatically lead. So even if a kid has, 50 tacks for 50 different items, they may not be able to request for banana, even though they have that tact. So that's really interesting. So let's kind of fast forward that to WH requests and teaching WH questions. And so often, and I'm guilty of this as well, so often we go and we teach, WH questions at a tacting level and then an intraverbal level, but we forget about the mand. And if we think that manding leads to tacting and intraverbals, then we really should be doing WH requesting first, or at least at the same time when we're doing those other WH questions programs.
Okay, so assuming that you've worked on Manding for requesting for items, attention, you could work on requesting for help, for a break, for protest, any one of those things, and we're up to now Manding with WH questions. What would we start with?
So this is something that I've gone back and forth with therapists on, different professionals. I typically start with Manding with where questions, and I do that only because it's really easy to contrive those situations for no other purpose. And, I'll start with, having kids request where, because we can hide preferred items. So they want a banana. I don't know why a kid wants a banana, but they want this banana, and we can teach them to say, where is the banana? Because, they go and the bananas aren't on the counter. And that's when we can teach them to say, where is the banana? Or, we're heading outside and the kids don't have their shoes on and they have to say, where are my shoes? I've been at a center-based program before where kids have to get their lunch out of a fridge and they don't have their lunch because we've hid it. And they open up the fridge and they say, where's my lunch? Or we can teach them to open up their lunch bag and go, where's my lunch? Because we've taken the lunch out of the lunch bag. So it's really easy to contrive. Now, there's another argument, though, of okay, don't start with where. Look at what neurotypical kids do. When kids are 18 months, when they're 2 years old, what are some of those really beginner WH questions that they're learning? And you go back to that. And if you've ever been around a 2-year-old, most 2-year-olds, everything out of their mouth at this point in time is what dat, right? What is it? What's that? And if you're if you teach PRT, which is pivotal response training, pivotal response people would say you need to teach the what questions first, because that is what kids learn and that's the progression. So how do you teach what first when where is just so easy to contrive? That's a great question. So going along with some of the PRT research, what they're saying is in order to contrive that, you can't just hold up a picture and say, what is it? And they're like, I don't know. It looks like this abstract ink drawing. But then after 3 responses, they're like, it's a butterfly. We have to actually go, okay, how could we do this? So what PRT people would say is, get a pillowcase, get a hat, get a box, get something, and hide some really preferred items in the box. And what you would do is you would hide, say, bubbles, a squish ball, whatever they're really motivated by, and you hide something like that in the box. And then you teach kids to say, what is it? And you could say, I have something in this box, and make it really fun. Like, oh, I have something for you. And you're digging into this magic box or this magic bag. And the kiddo is saying, what is it? And you pull it out and you say, it's bubbles. And then you take a couple minutes and you blow some bubbles and you have some fun with it. And you say, there's more things in this box. And then you pull it and they say, what is it? And they pull more things out. So you're really building on that motivation. And that's a really great way to teach those what questions.
And another thing to remember is because you're capitalizing on the motivation, to keep it fun, it shouldn't become, a whole drill of that. You pulled out the bubbles and now we're going to talk about the bubbles and point to the bubbles and label the bubbles and what color are the bubbles. You really want to pair the what's that with that immediate, natural reinforcement of getting to have access to the thing that they really want, because that's how we're really building the skill.
And if you look at, a 2-year-old, when they're learning, what's that and why they're always asking what's that, they're not necessarily asking what's that because they don't know the answer. A lot of the time, it's really just an initiation or it's a bid for attention. They're pointing to something and they know for real that it's an airplane, but they're looking and they're going, what's that? Because they want the adult's attention and they want the adult to say, oh, that's an airplane. You know what that is, blah, 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 right? So again, we're trying to teach it in a really fun way so that it's not that they are asking about something that they don't know the item label to, but it's really about, hey, I want to play with you.
So we actually have a whole list of ideas of ways that you could contrive different situations based on, the different mans that you're working on, because, you got to get creative. For example, if you were trying to teach a learner to request with when, you could say something like, hey, we're going somewhere. Or we're going to the park. They love the park. And then you don't say when they're going, but getting them to say, oh, when are we going? And then again, thinking about reinforcement right now, we're going right now. Let's go to the park, kind of reinforcing them asking when. And then you can start to fade the reinforcement. Maybe we're going to the park in a couple minutes or in a couple hours. But you also have to think about what's the reinforcement for them to request with those WH questions. So contriving a situation where you can immediately reinforce with something. Maybe you're talking on the phone and you want to prompt them to say, who is it? And it's somebody they really want to talk to. And then you can be like, oh, it's grandma here. And then they get to talk to grandma. So it's a lot of fun to think about these ways to be creative. And it's something that you can keep kind of ongoingly running in the background of your program so that you don't either run it as like 10 trials of me holding a phone and saying, who is it? Who is it? Who is it? But it's something that we can have interspersed throughout so that it becomes a lot more natural. And right before we're going to do something fun, kind of think to yourself, like, what can I get the student to request for? If we're going to do it anyway, I have this natural reinforcement coming up. We're going to go jump on the trampoline. So let me get him to request it in some way beyond just saying trampoline, which we, a lot of students can move past that. But you could say, we're about to do something really fun. And they could say, oh, what are we going to do? And then, we get to go jump on the trampoline and then you get to go do it.
I've had full team meetings about WH requesting, and that can be really fun too. And it's like, okay, hey, we're going to start teaching our client to request using where or request using when. who has ideas? Like, what kinds of ideas can we contrive? And I find that's really successful when training other people, instead of just saying, here's what you're going to do this, do this, do this. A lot of therapists are really creative. So let them come up with ideas. And if they can come up with some ideas with direction, but if they can come up with some ideas themselves, then you get more buy-in. For instance, we're talking about contriving who, and I think that's a really great idea, having someone call on the phone, but can you really contrive 10 or 15 or 20 trials of grandma calling throughout a session? Like, it's really tough. But I had a therapist one time who was like, the client loves Paw Patrol and they've got all these Paw Patrol things. Why don't we put the Paw Patrol characters around the room and hide an M&M or hide something, behind these things. And you say, it's time for this, or, hey, I've got this, or someone has it. And you've got to say, who has it? So, it's time to do some writing, but, someone's got your pencil. Who has my pencil? Or, hey, you know what? You can have a special treat. I've got some M&Ms, but I don't have them. Someone else has them. Who has them? And it's really cool because those are ideas that, therapists I work with came up with those. And I think this just putting everyone's head together is way better than just trying to say, okay, this is what you're doing and this is why, go for it.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And I think it's directly related to the amount that they can learn, and the opportunities that they have are really up to us to contrive. And so we could take frequency data on the amount of situations that we've contrived for the student to request with WH. We could take data on the amount of spontaneous WH requests, maybe without it being so much contrived or prompted versus unprompted. There's so many ways that you can track this. A really simple way is just frequency data on WH mans, whether it's contrived or not, doesn't really matter. Probably not. Just get that frequency number up.
For more information on requesting with WH questions, click the link on or around this video or in the description to claim your WH requesting ideas freebie. We also encourage you to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any future videos, and leave a like and comment below if you have further questions.